the organization has. So we're talking about how the board behaves, or in some cases, how they misbehave, because that also happens, rather than the tax they give.
Very rare environment that I know.
I tell you, have secured the name and content.
Hello, welcome to this episode of ICAN On Air Enlightenment Program. And today, we examine the subject, Internal Control over Financial Reporting, ICFR for short, and the regulator, the expectations from the professional accountant. Really, for more than a decade, public companies have been required to implement ICFR, Internal Control over Financial Reporting, especially as part of EUR audits. While some organizations may view the ICFR requirements as a burden or a check in the box exercise, these companies are likely, yes, most likely missing the opportunities to unlock hidden value, which may have a broader implication on their system of internal control. And to throw in that understanding for us on this subject, I will be joined shortly in our question and answer segment by Dr. EMOMOTIMI for short, Agama, MCSI, ACFE, LIFA, ACMA, CGMA, ACS. Dr. Agama is a chartered management accountant, he's an economist, he's an investment analyst, he's a risk manager, and a chartered broker. He is currently the managing director at the Nigerian Capital Market Institute, a subsidiary of the Securities and Exchange Commission. Dr. Agama serves as regional executive member of the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, CGMA, UK, and is chairman Board of Trustees for Purity Orphanage Home. We unveil a little bit much more on our August guests as we move along. And also on this segment of our program, we let you into a few of our ICAN diary of events. What is coming up? What to expect? Short adverts on the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria. Yes, these are more are the expectations we have for you in this package. And so you want to stay on, stay connected. We will be back with you very shortly.
Hi there. Are you still thinking about why you should register for the 4th ICAN Malaysia International Accountants Conference? It's okay. The conference focus this year is specifically targeted at ensuring that all delegates become future ready and fully equipped to navigate the current times. There are also a lot of insights and discoveries that await you at this year's conference. You also get the chance to experience both the personal and professional impact of the conference. What about the networking? the tour experience, and lots of engaging interactions to bring you an all-round value. So there's no more time left for thinking. You have got to take action now. So register today and join other professionals at the 4th ICAN Malaysia International Accountants Conference from the 16th to the 19th of May 2022 at the Adia Hotel Kedah, Langkawi. For more information, please visit www.icanifemalaysia.org. See you there.
Dr. Timi Agama, welcome to ICAN on Air. Nice to have you here.
Thank you so very much, my brother Akin Fatuke. It's been a long time, and I'm so happy to see you again, in flesh and blood, even though digitally.
Oh, yes, I can say. A lot of our professional colleagues who also know you with the SEC and what have you are also pleased to see you. And then looking into the subject of the day, I like, for the benefits of students, those in private sector, those in public service, of course, and of course, the friends of being counters, as we are called as accountants in business, try to frame this subject so we can really understand what we are going to be expecting on this journey of internal control over financial reporting and the regulator, and our expectations as professional accountants. May I ask you, therefore, what is internal control over financial reporting, ICFR, and what really is the legal backing for this disclosure in Nigeria?
Oh, great, wonderful question. I think the basis of any subject matter is actually a definition of that subject matter. That provides a background for whoever is listening in order for them to have a free flow into the subject matter as we go on. So indeed, the question about what it is really important and very germane, even at this time. But what is important is that it is not as, vague or as arbitrary as one may probably think about it. Because when you use the word internal control over financial reporting, it sounds very big and verbose. And for that reason, a lot of people are scared. What again are these accountants talking about? But my business this evening and with my colleagues is to probably bring it to that level where there is a comfort about what we're speaking to. Internal control is as old as the accounting profession. Internal control is something that we are all knowledgeable about, we are all used to. However, probably we do not take it as serious, especially for the non-accountant, to say this is actually the life wire of accounting. So when you speak about internal control, you're actually speaking about an ethical discipline that exists for every accountant, more importantly, the chartered accountants. That is being able to be disciplined, providing an assurance of control. Control is simply being able to put things in perspective and dealing with them rightly to provide that assurance that is needed by all and sundry. And practically speaking, for an accountant, you will definitely need to define your stakeholders. And who are the stakeholders? The stakeholders are the company itself, the management of the company itself, the investors who are there, and of course, government, the tax authority, the regulators, right? And indeed, even the accounting profession and the external auditors, as it were. So practically, internal control over financial reporting is being able to put in all of the pillars that guide the preparation of an accounting statement within the ambit of the regulations and the law, in order that the provisions, as it were, are properly adhered to, and whatever is actually reported on by the accountant seemingly meets all of the requirements. So it's not far from what it is. It's telling us, do what is right. So in a very simple term, internal control over financial reporting is a do what is right over financial reporting. Because the public, the investor, the government all rely on our assurances. So, practically speaking, that is just what it is, and nothing much more than what it is.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, Dr. Timi Agama. But I pull you back a little bit.
Yes.
We understand from the framing that we are giving that internal control is like the life. But are internal controls keeping pace with the regulatory environment in Nigeria?
Come again, please.
I asked the question based on your explanation of the importance of internal control. And I'm asking that, are internal controls keeping pace with the regulatory environment in Nigeria?
Right, wonderful. You know, your questions are just straight to the point, and it hits the nerve of the subject matter. I clearly, in my opinion, do not think we are there yet. Of course, it's important to take our listeners back to Enron, the Enron case. The Enron case happened over, 2 decades ago, practically 2000 and 2001. We're in 2022, so it tells you how long that has taken place for a company set up in 1985, which is Enron. And of course, the Enron's
Yes, I think we may have temporarily lost Dr. Timi Agama, and I'm very sure he's going to be back with us. And he's trying to make the point to my question, if internal control as envisaged, is keeping pace with the environment. He started by making the point that not exactly, but like we say, work in progress, moving in slowly. I think it's, it's what's much more mentioning and underlining that perhaps because those who will service don't understand, and even those who, as practitioners, don't really know, that you begin to catch it from the onset of getting into a problem before it becomes a gaping hole. We will go on break briefly now, and by the time we come back, I'm sure Dr. Timi Agama will be back. So stay on, stay put, don't go away. We will be back with you very shortly. The opportunity of financial resources. The opportunity of financial resources extended on national grid. So we are 75% of our national security program. And I will tell you,
the organization has. So we're talking about how the board behaves, or in some cases, how they misbehave, because that also happens, rather than the tax they give.
tell you, have secured the name and heritage. Oh, Dr. Timi, you're back.
Yes, so sorry. It is
Oh,
the
that's
risk
okay.
of technology.
It does happen. It's part of internal control. Some of the things that internal control
Exactly.
might be able to help us with. The force majeure. So you were talking about the capacity of the internal control being embraced by the regulatory environment. I wanted you to rest your point on that score. Did you hear me? Oh, okay. I was saying we are looking at internal controls keeping pace with regulatory environment in Nigeria, and you are making a point that not exactly. I wanted you to bury that. Yes.
Yeah. So yes. So sorry to the audience for that short break. But anyhow, I was bringing the point from the angle of history, and I was talking about Sarbanes-Oxley, and I was talking about Enron, and that happened over 22 years ago. About that, particularly in the year 2000 and the dot-com years, and that was what brought about the Sarbanes-Oxley Act in the U.S., where
Again, another glitch has just come in. I'm very sure Dr. Timi Agama will soon join us. I believe he's going to join us shortly.
of the Investment and Securities Act.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Okay, we can hear you now. We can hear you now.
Right,
We lost you a bit.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Okay. So I was saying that the Enron saga and indeed the enactment of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act in 2000 and the U.S. actually brought about the need and necessity to re-examine the value and need for internal control over financial reporting. Because at that point in time, it was clear that the reason for the challenges you had in the Enron saga was because of the inefficiency of internal control procedures. Okay. However, it was also important to note that the famous firm of Arthur Andersen, who were the auditors for Enron for over 16 years, were culpable in that process. So for that reason, it became so important that there should be a law to be able to help the accountants, the management, the investors, and government understand and appreciate the value of internal control over financial reporting. Coming back to your question most quickly, the fact is that ever since that act of Sarbanes-Oxley, what had happened in the Nigerian space was that there was an enactment of the Investment and Securities Act 2007. And in that act, Section 62 up to 64 clearly make provision for internal control over financial reporting. Have we energized that section? No. The year 2021 will have been the year where the SEC had insisted that this should be done. However, with the representation from the stakeholders, the SEC decided to move it up to 2022. And that's exactly what we are doing. So speaking to your question, yes, by law, we have been there since 2007, but by action, we are yet to be there. And that is why this topic is so important. And I'm so grateful to you for having to organize such a topic for the listening pleasure of accountants and stakeholders that are interested in this subject matter.
And therefore, res ipso facto, as they say. If those facts speak to it, and then we rather have to shift.
I dare say that many companies have not materially modified the way they manage their system of internal controls. So what is expected of the company's management, the board, and the external auditor?
Wow. It's interesting. This is the crux of the matter. And that is why education such as this and platforms such as this should be encouraged. The responsibility for internal control lies not only with the external auditor. Indeed, should it actually lie with the external auditor? No, but primarily with the management of the company and indeed the board. They have a responsibility, and that responsibility is enshrined in the law. Section 60 up to 64 of the Investment and Securities Act, to make sure that the internal control system within the organization is adequate enough to be able to safeguard whatever challenges that may exist or will ever exist within that company. Like I mentioned earlier, the problem with Enron was practically that of management, more so, and of course, that of the accountants that were superintending over the accounts of Enron. But without the adequate knowledge of management, the support of management, the technical capability of management, and indeed the technical oversight ability of the board of the company, certainly nothing will go right. And that is why it's important that management and board are made to know, they are aware that they have a responsibility, which for want of a better word, I'll call sacred responsibility, to make sure that the internal control system within the organization is adequate, that everything that needs to be put in place in order for the internal control system to be adjudged as adequate is actually there. And of course, the knowledge of the board, knowing fully well that their responsibility goes beyond coming to sit for the board meeting, but to oversee that adequacy is important. And oversight of the management by the board with respect to this responsibility gives the board that responsibility that is so required for them to be able to watch over the management in order that internal control procedures are properly set in place. Be that as it may, it is also important for the professional accountant who serves as the auditor of these companies to be able to be sure, applying all of the systems, that indeed the information provided by both management and the board are adequate and are within certification. Hence, for these three sets of people, it is very, very vital and important to know that they have a legal obligation to meet these requirements. Hence, a program of this nature becomes so important, and for whoever that is missing it is actually missing a pound of flesh.
Wow. Thank you. We go and drill down to basic tax now. Why is segregation of duties a ticking time bomb, in your view?
Oh, wow. You know, when the questions come this way, it hits me directly because it speaks to that age-long responsibility. There is no way you can have collusion when there is segregation of duty and segregation of responsibility. So internal control is an age-old phenomenon which you cannot divorce from transparency and accountability. And the core of transparency and accountability lies in segregation of duty. There must be segregation of responsibility among the officers, because it is only via collusion that you have, misdemeanor. It's only via collusion that you have corruption. It's only via collusion that you have the kind of stuff we hear about in the Enron case. And of course, in the Nigerian parlance, most recently, not too far away, for every accountant, we simply can remember the Cadbury case. And so it is important that segregation of responsibility, segregation of duty is seen as a very, very important ingredient in achieving internal control and internal control process, in order that in providing assurance, you are indeed sure that you can beat your chest that responsibilities are indeed segregated and collusion was avoidable.
Super. Thank you. Back to ICFR, Internal Control over Financial Reporting. So if the program has been properly set and there is an embrace from the emotional intelligence perspective, internally and externally to embrace, what do you do to regulate, really regularly? I think that is it. It can't be static. What do you do to regularly update the ICFR program to respond to changes in the business, one, and of course the regulatory requirements?
Yeah, thank you again. Thank you again. Because it is important that people understand that nature is dynamic. The only thing that is constant is change. And change can only be taken care of when we move with change. Hence, in the dynamism of the ICFR and indeed the rules and regulations, there is a need for examination and education. The only thing that works with change is education. Because when you are educated, you are able to know exactly the gaps that existed, and you are able to meet those gaps in order that you provide a better solution in future. So clearly, for the regulator and indeed for the accountants, one responsibility that we cannot shy away from is that regular education and regular review. Accounting is about review. So its regulations too should come about with reviews. So regulations must always be reviewed in order for us to be abreast with changes in time and also deliver with new things that have happened before. I dare question any one of us here as an accountant. Did we in our balance sheets ever think that we should be recording virtual monies? But I think it's something we should start thinking about. What would be the role of virtual monies in our balance sheet? And how do we account for them?
Fantastic. Hey, Timmy, you just got it. You know, the professions have a way of drawing boundaries and drawing limits. And Abel Assain is putting a question that has always reverberated in the minds of professional accountants. And that is that if internal controls are sacred responsibility of the board and management, why is assurance on internal control part of this regular annual audit engagement, when in fact it is a distinct assignment?
Wow. Thank you, Mr. Eisen. Questions like this are useful for all of us to understand. The question I will ask again in that question, because as a Nigerian, one of our common traits is asking questions with answering questions with questions. What now? The question is it really only a sacred responsibility of the board? Are we not involved in the system? When we speak about the system, do we only speak to the board alone? No. It's as if you talk about the upbringing of a child as being the responsibility of the child alone. No, the upbringing of the child is beyond the responsibility of the child. It also has the parent as being part of it. But beyond the parent, in the African tradition, it is the community. Hence, the auditor must have an eye over the company it is auditing. Perhaps the responsibility of the external auditor goes beyond just signing off. As an auditor, one of the critical responsibility or features of an auditor is a conscience. If an auditor stops having a conscience, then the company's conscience is dead. Hence, beyond being an assignment, beyond it being a distinct assignment, right, I understand where Mr. ICAN is coming from. The angle of engagement hours, who is going to pay for it? Is it going to attract additional costs? And what do we need to do about it? Understandable. But beyond all of that, the question is, do we have the luxury of reputational risk that is associated with a bad internal control system in a company that we audit? When we ask ourselves that question, we probably will give answers to that question that was asked by Mr. Asen. In as much as possible, I know for a fact, or I believe for a fact, which is a personal opinion, that the cost of audits may improve. I wouldn't say increase, but the value of such costs vis-a-vis the reputational risk of it not being available cannot be compared. Hence, it is an important aspect of what we need to do.
Thank you very much on delineating the reputational risk. And Mutari Yakubu is now asking that who should the internal auditor of a company report to? The SCFO, the CEO, or the board? And what your view is on the current trend where top Nigerian banks CEOs are forming companies to perpetuate themselves in office?
Wow. This is good. Very good. Yes, it is an age-long question about who the CFO should, the internal auditor should report to, either the CFO or the CEO or the board. If you remember from your little knowledge of organizational theory, you will know that the structure of an organization is such that the internal auditor has a line to the board and a dotted line to the CEO. The internal auditor cannot be operating or reporting to the CFO. No, they are actually operating different functions. However, in some smaller organizations, those things are jumbled. But clearly, the internal auditor's responsibility is directly to the board. It has a dotted line to the CEO. Yes, it does. But clearly, that is what the case is. And your second question, yes. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Your second question was speaking to what again? If I could.
Yes, it was talking about bank CEOs, getting share companies to perpetuate themselves in office.
Right. That is not a question for the accountants. It's a question for the economy and for government, and indeed for the world at large.
Super.
Things happen. They may have some reasons. Sometimes those perpetuation strategies have advantages, and sometimes they don't. But the question is, we all need to look deeper into all of this. Mind you, the accountants are part of those that make, that give those advice. So we also need to look back at ourselves and say, what did we tell them? And probably we need to really look into their accounts when they do exist.
That is delving into areas of governance. But I'd like to ask you, Dr. Timi Agama.
Yes, sir.
How do you select and monitor the right scope and mix of controls?
Yes. So the systems of controls have always existed and have never changed. Will never change. What has happened is that it is the implementation of these systems that actually, changes. And it is dependent on the technical efficiency of those involved.
Hmm.
So selecting your mix is dependent on the technical ability of those implementing it. No two mix will ever be the same and will ever work for two companies alike. So the training of accountants, like you all are aware, is so vast. I can hardly think of any other training as is given to an accountant with regards to any other profession. And that is why, because of the deep training of the accountant, of course, the simplest, comparison of an accountant is to a doctor who does not know the ailment of a patient that will come to him. You actually do not know the ailment of the company that you are going to audit. Not until you get there.
Oh, yeah. By the time it gets to the emergency room, and there's so many things begin to work at cross purposes.
Exactly.
I'd like to also ask you pointedly, what is expected of a company's audit of its financial statements whilst reporting one or more material weaknesses in ICFR?
What is expected of a company is simply to follow existing rules and procedures. You do not change a winning thing, neither will you change a winning submission. So, the system of accounting existed long before most programs. If you remember side bottom, right? If you remember the book on side bottom, accounting theory, for those old accountants, you will know that, where we talk about, the issues of Luca Pacioli, who was one of the major founding fathers of accounting. Debit and credit existed long before anybody can think about it. But the same debit and credit is what is existing. Have we changed it as accountants? Will we change it as accountants? No, because that is the bedrock and the foundation for which our profession stands.
Excellent. And Yakubu is coming back and talking about misconceptions on internal controls. That internal controls remains the duty of management. The misconception in some quarters that enforcing internal control procedure is a responsibility of auditors. How do we bridge these expectation gaps, especially from our consuming public?
Mutari, that's a wonderful question again. But I throw it back again to say, look, if we take it that way, then we certainly may not be doing justice even to management. Because primarily, as much as it is, a duty of management, the establishment of internal control, the adequacy of the internal control system is buttressed, underlined, buttressed by the external auditor. Because sometimes, and I use another analogy to you, those that play football match on the field do not know their mistakes. It is those outside who are watching them. So if you enthrone the responsibility of internal control and its effectiveness only to management, they probably do not see the mistakes that they make. Hence, it is important that as auditors, the adequacy, efficiency, effectiveness of internal control is part of the responsibility of auditors. And once that is in the management later, the management becomes aware and up to task in dealing with any challenge that exists in the internal control system, even for future audit. So you cannot divorce it.
Interesting. If you are just joining in, this is ICAN on Air, the educational program set by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria,
to upgrade knowledge, not just for us as professional accountants, friends of accountancy, and our country in general. And today, we're looking at the question of internal control over financial reporting and the regulator. The expectations from us as professional accountants. Guest in is Dr. Timi Agama, who's been throwing in-depth line of knowledge to enrich us on this subject. If you have questions, please send more. And even before my ink got dried, Abel Hussein is coming back to say SEC and Financial Reporting Council must collaborate to be able to enforce compliance to the ICFR template or framework. What is the extent of collaboration between both bodies today?
Well, Mr. Asen, thank you again for those illuminating questions. Clearly, there is no gainsaying that the SEC and the FRC are Siamese twins. While this is a personal opinion, not that of the Securities and Exchange Commission, for which I work, I can tell you clearly that that relationship is unparalleled. There is no two ways about it. You know, when you come to a situation, there are some institutions that cannot live without each other. Can you have a teeth without a tongue? No, you cannot. So the relationship between the SEC and the FRC is such that they both exist together for the common purpose of a strong financial system stability, strong reporting, disclosure, good corporate governance, and indeed, a strong economy. Besides the overarching facts that both of them are agencies of government. Can we as children of one parent be divided?
Especially if we are twins.
Especially if we are twins.
And sometimes you may have triplets, eh?
Yes, exactly.
In a manner
which by accident I am a twin, so I can speak of it better.
So the collaboration is ongoing and it's going well.
Very well.
I like to talk a little bit. Time is not a friend, but I like to throw this in. What do you think are the consequences of non-compliance with the ISA?
I had to breathe because it is a very important point to make to our listening public that a violation of the ISA is a violation of the law. And a violation of the law attracts severe consequences. And nobody ever wants actually to mess up with the law. And that is why we must all take this very seriously. And that is so, so important. We must be able to speak to our clients to get them to understand that it is not your will or your wish. It is the will and wish of the law. And the will and wish of the law must be obeyed. The only thing you can do to change it is lobby the National Assembly. But I'm not sure that the National Assembly will listen to anything that goes against the principle of good governance, good reporting, and financial disclosure. Hence, a violation is a serious offense and has very, very serious consequences, which I wouldn't think and wouldn't wish for anyone who belongs to this noble profession.
That is stating the facts barefacedly, and it must be understood, it must be respected, and the breaches will attract untoward consequences. Mutari Yakubu will perhaps be talking about that, small and medium enterprises, and indeed the micro, if you add that on, don't have the luxury of adequate staff that can allow for real
segregation, say separation, segregation of duties. Would you recommend outsourcing as against leaving the accounting system in the hands of one powerful gentleman or gentle lady as we have them now?
Oh, Motare, thank you. I want to thank you for all of these questions because they are very illuminating. And I can say clearly, without any doubt, outsourcing is a very, very important, function. And of course, a growing business worldwide. In Nigeria, yet is still in the infancy, so to speak, but it provides opportunities for accountants, well-trained accountants, professional accountants to provide service to small and medium enterprises in order to build in them the culture of good internal control, good corporate governance, transparency, and a functional institution. So in my opinion, outsourcing is very good, very interesting, and useful. And so it's not out of place for people to embrace the idea, more so for accountants, professional accountants, to start putting themselves together in providing such services to small and medium scale enterprises at cost that is affordable to them. Because the reason why those small and medium enterprises are not able to do what you expect them to do is high on cost, the cost of doing business. So while we are putting this service available to this set of people who are a very, very significant part of our economy and development, we must also look at the cost of providing such and how well that will go with their development.
Awesome. Great delivery. I will now pull you back to the ISA that you mentioned earlier and ask the question, that law, the law surrounding disclosures, we have a duty of responsibility, reputational. And I'd like to ask you, what is the value of the law to investors, to shareholders, to the company, to the government, and indeed, we as external auditors?
Mr. Akin, I guess that you actually went to do a PhD program to set out these questions to hit me this evening. Anyway, I will manage to answer them. It is so critical to know that we are all in the ecosystem. I call it the accounting or accountants ecosystem. And in that ecosystem, you have all of these persons involved. You have the investor, whose business actually is to make money after putting money in your company. But before that man or woman or that investor will make money, you must run the company properly. And a great responsibility in running that company properly is a strong internal control process. We don't want our companies to fold up. The only way our companies will not fold up is when we provide accountability, we provide transparency, we provide efficiency of service, and honesty and integrity. This is reason. And of course, one of the cardinal principles of ICAN is integrity. In fact, it is part of its motto. So it's important. For the investor, that is crucial. For the management, when you run a good company, you leave a legacy, you leave a name, and you also are able to empower your society, creating jobs, and of course, improving economy and the standard of living. As accountants, one of our major responsibilities is wealth creation. That is one of our responsibilities. Even when we don't think about it, the world thinks about it for us. And that is why you won't find any accountant that people do not go and meet to ask for money. Because to the world, we have all of the money. And we can't run away from that fact. After all, we are accountants.
Indeed.
But for that to happen, the company must run well.
Must
For the
run
professional
well.
accountant, it's like asking the question, what is the responsibility of a parent? It is not far-fetched. The responsibility of a parent is to parent the child. The responsibility of the accountant, the professional accountant, is to make sure that the company does what is right in accounting for resources that has been put in their hands. That is the
Excellent.
responsibility.
Excellent point. You mentioned you are a twin, Dr. Timi Agama. You mentioned
Yes.
one aspect of the twin, and that
Yes.
integrity is our motto. Accuracy is also the other aspect. And when you combine that, talking about governance, to take our companies, organizations, and country forward. Time not being a friend, I'd like you to give us your parting shots on these subjects of today, Dr. Timi Agama.
Well, it's been a wonderful time, and I would have wished we could continue on and on and on. But time will not allow us. So in that state, I want to say a very, very big thank you to the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria for providing me the honor of being part of this wonderful innovation of broadcast, which it is unparalleled in the annals of this country. ICAN on air is fantastic. To my brother Akin Fatuke, you have done it again. You did it before, you are doing it again, and you continue to do it. And indeed, to the very wonderful president of ICAN, Chief Mrs. Comfort Olu Eyitayo, it is indeed a wonderful initiative. I am sure ICAN will continue to remember these and many other things you are bringing to fore in order to improve the knowledge of accountants. But I can tell you clearly that history will be on your side when the statements are made about what you have done to improve accountants in general. So God bless you. Thank you.
Amen. Amen. And I will remember to tell Mrs. Comfort Olu Eyitayo, the woman who has broken the glass ceiling, that you have given her a chieftaincy title of a chief. I will remember. I'm going to give that to her because
she deserves it.
In all respect, talking about women making the strides in the profession. Comfort Olu Eyitayo, Mrs. MNI, FCA has given a baton to women, Society of Women Accountants, and all other professions. A lead to follow. Thank you very much, Dr. Agama. I'd like to also thank our participants for those incisive questions and your very nice comments. This is not going to be the end of the road. I'd like to quickly make this announcement that in a few days' time, I'm talking about May 10 through May 12. The ICAN professional exam for 2022 will take place. Initially, it was scheduled for Tuesday, May 17 to Thursday, May 19, 2022. Please take note, and please let our students know that come May 10 to 12, 2022, the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria are poised to produce another Ojo Jonathan Adewale, the young 14-year-old, 16-year-old who threw his heart into the ring and became the youngest chartered accountants of Nigeria. So please, some of them are still waiting. Let them know that the 2022 May exams is going to take place May 10 to May 12, 2022. And also, the 69th induction ceremony will now hold May 24th and May 25th, 2022.
Please, it was earlier scheduled for May 9 and May 10, 2022. Now it's going to hold on the 24th and the 25th of May 2022. Venue will still be the plot 12-4 Kasumu Street, Lakeview Estate, Amuwo-Odofin, Lagos. And this announcement is being made by Ahmed M. Kumshe, Professor, FCA, the Registrar, and Chief Executive of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria. Has made this with regrets for the unforeseen circumstances of these changes that we have in dates. ICAN on air continues. We do this 2 times a week, and we've done it regularly. And the next one is going to be on Thursday, May 5, 2022. The time and venue will still be at 6 p.m. West African time on ICAN social media platforms, the YouTube, the Facebook handles. The topic we are going to be looking at is personal finance for professionals. And we will be having guests in Shola Adeshaki, Mrs. ACA, ACCA, CPA. She is, by definition, a personal stroke business finance consultant and coach. She's passionate about helping people understand how to make, manage, multiply money. She puts that message all through all the time, and therefore to maximize their resources and to achieving their crucial financial milestones and build true wealth through the concept of financial planning. She is an author currently of 8 published books and several unpublished articles. Mrs. Shola Adeshaki has been recognized as one of Nigeria's 100 most inspiring women in 2020 and has won many awards in recognition of her contributions in the finance and business industry. You don't want to miss this, and you want to tell somebody else to join you on ICAN on air come May 5, 2022. And I drop my nuggets for today. And I quote, "We are all criminally insane, but most of us have good control mechanisms, internal and external. Remove the controls and you have a killer." End of quote. That is attributable to Nelson D. Mele. And so the sun sets here on our ICAN on air program for today to arise again, as earlier mentioned, on Thursday, May 5, 2022. And until I come your way again, I remain Akin Fatunke, your anchor, ICAN on air. As I always say, you be the change you like to see. Bye for now.